Ambassador Lee Hana stepped off the transport shuttle and into the massive docking bay of the Galactic Council station. The structure was enormous, bigger than any human city, floating in the darkness of space like a metal moon. She had dreamed of this moment for years, but now that she was here, something felt wrong. The corridors were filled with aliens of every shape and size. Some walked on four legs, others floated through the air, and a few had tentacles instead of arms. They all stopped to stare at her as she passed. Their eyes followed her every step, and she could hear them whispering in languages she didn't understand. The universal translator in her ear picked up fragments of their conversations, and none of it was friendly. Another primitive species, one alien muttered as she walked by. They barely learned to fly between stars and already want to join us. Hana kept walking, her back straight and her face calm. She had trained for this moment for 5 years. Earth had spent decades preparing their application to join the Galactic Federation. Every document was perfect, every requirement met. She carried humanity's hopes in the briefcase at her side. The Unity, Earth's finest diplomatic ship, had taken 3 months to reach the station. During the journey, Hana had studied every species in the Federation, learned their customs, memorized their languages. She knew exactly how to greet each council member in their own tongue. Earth wanted to make a perfect first impression. But as she walked through the station, Hana realized that first impressions had already been made, and they weren't good. The aliens looked at her like she was some kind of dangerous animal that had wandered into their civilized space. Some actually stepped back when she approached, as if being near a human might infect them with violence. A tall, blue-skinned alien, with 4 arms, blocked her path. His species was called the Velrathi, and they were known for their diplomatic skills. "Human," he said, his voice dripping with disgust. "You should not be here. Your kind brings only war and destruction." "I bring only peace," Hana replied in perfect Velrathi. "Earth wishes to join the galactic community and contribute to the greater good." The alien laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Peace. Your planet has been at war with itself for thousands of years. You still fight over resources, land, and beliefs. What makes you think you're ready to sit among civilized species?" Other aliens gathered around to watch the confrontation. Hana could feel their hostility like heat from a fire. They had already made up their minds about humanity before she had even spoken a single word. Every smile was fake, every greeting hollow. They saw humans as violent barbarians who had accidentally discovered space travel, but Hana had a job to do. She was Earth's voice among the stars, and she would not let her species down. She smiled politely at the Velrathi and continued toward the council chambers. Behind her, she could hear the aliens talking excitedly, probably placing bets on how quickly the humans would be rejected. As the massive doors to the council chamber opened before her, Hana took a deep breath and prepared to fight for humanity's future with nothing but words and hope. The council chamber was a vast circular room, with hundreds of seats arranged in rising tiers. Representatives from dozens of alien species filled the space, their various forms creating a bizarre collection of colors, shapes, and sizes. At the center sat a single chair where Hana was directed to sit. Above her, holographic displays showed Earth rotating slowly, looking peaceful and blue from space. The chief prosecutor was a creature called Vextar, resembling a giant mantis with glowing red eyes. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the chamber with artificial authority. "We gather today to examine the application of the species known as humans," he announced. "But first, we must address the serious concerns about their violent nature." Hana felt her stomach drop. This wasn't how diplomatic hearings were supposed to begin. Where were the formal introductions, the review of Earth's achievements, the discussion of what humanity could contribute to the Federation? Instead, Vextar activated a holographic display showing images of human conflicts throughout history. Wars, battles, and destruction filled the air above them. "Observe," he said dramatically, "a species that has spent its entire existence in constant warfare. These creatures have never known true peace." The images were real, but they were taken completely out of context. There was no mention of the centuries of peace between many nations, no discussion of humanitarian efforts, no acknowledgement of the scientific and cultural achievements that had brought humanity to the stars. It was as if someone had deliberately chosen only the worst moments from human history. Furthermore, Vextar continued, our intelligence sources have discovered evidence of ongoing military preparations on Earth. New images appeared showing human space stations and ships under construction. These so-called peaceful explorers are building weapons of war even as they request membership in our peaceful federation. Hana started to stand. Those are defensive installations built according to Federation guidelines for new member species. Every civilization is required to maintain basic security forces. Silence, Vextar's voice boomed. You will speak only when the Council permits it. One by one, alien representatives stood to speak against humanity. A floating jellyfish-like creature claimed that humans were genetically programmed for violence. A rock-like being insisted that Earth's environmental problems proved humans couldn't be trusted with galactic resources. Each testimony felt rehearsed, as if they had all prepared their speeches long before Hana arrived. The most damaging testimony came from Ambassador Kildar of the Thexian Empire. His species had been among the first to make contact with Earth, and humans had trusted them as friends. Now Kildar stood before the Council with a collection of what he claimed were secret human military documents. These files prove that humans view first contact as an opportunity for conquest, he declared. They have been studying our weaknesses from the moment we met them. They plan to infiltrate the Federation and destroy it from within. Hana recognized some of the documents. They were routine diplomatic briefings about alien cultures, the kind every embassy prepared. But Kildar presented them as evidence of a sinister plot. She realized with growing horror that her species had been set up. This wasn't a review hearing at all. It was a trial, and the verdict had already been decided before she entered the room. When the Council finally allowed Hana to speak, she stood with quiet dignity despite the hostile atmosphere surrounding her. Her voice carried clearly through the vast chamber as she began her defense of humanity. She spoke of Earth's scientific achievements, the end of global wars, and the peaceful exploration missions that had brought humans to the stars. She showed images of human cities where different cultures lived together in harmony, hospitals where humans saved lives regardless of nationality, and research stations where scientists worked to solve problems that affected all life. You judge us by our past conflicts, Hana said, looking directly at each council member. But every species in this room has a history of war. The difference is that humanity learned from its mistakes. We chose cooperation over conquest, exploration, over exploitation. We come to you not as conquerors, but as students eager to learn from our galactic neighbors. Her words were eloquent and heartfelt, backed by evidence and logic. She presented Earth's contributions to medicine, technology, and art. She spoke of humanity's dreams to explore the universe peacefully, alongside other civilizations. For a brief moment, some of the younger alien representatives seemed to listen with genuine interest. But the Council's leadership had already made their decision. Chief Prosecutor Vexitar raised one of his mantis-like arms, and the chamber fell. Silent. The evidence is overwhelming, he declared. This species represents a clear and present danger to galactic peace. There is only one solution to prevent future catastrophe. The voting began immediately. One by one, each species cast their vote. The result was unanimous. Execution. Not exile, not probation, not a chance to prove themselves over time. Death. The Council had decided that the only good human was a dead human. As the verdict was announced, broadcasting systems throughout the galaxy came online. Every inhabited world, every space station, every ship would witness what happened next. The message was clear. This is what happens to species that dare to challenge the established order. Hana was led to the center of the chamber where a strange device had been installed. She had read about Galactic Council executions in her preparation, but she never imagined she would experience one herself. The device would drain her life force slowly, making the death visible to cameras for maximum impact. As they secured her to the execution device, Hana felt a strange calm wash over her. She had done her best to represent her species with honor. She had shown the galaxy what humanity could be at its finest. If they chose to reject that offer, the consequences were on their heads, not hers. The energy field activated, and Hana felt her strength beginning to fade. With her last breath, she looked directly into the main broadcast camera and spoke words that would echo across the galaxy. "You have made a terrible mistake. Humanity remembers. We always remember." As her life ended, celebrations erupted across dozens of worlds. The alien species congratulated themselves on preventing a future war before it could begin. They had solved the human problem permanently, or so they believed. Admiral Park Jin-woo was in his office at Lunar Command when the encrypted message arrived. The transmission came through quantum channels that only a handful of humans knew existed. As he read the brief report of Ambassador Hana's execution, his face remained perfectly calm, but his knuckles went white as he gripped the edge of his desk. He had known Hana personally. She had been his daughter's teacher before joining the Diplomatic Corps, a brilliant woman who genuinely believed in peaceful cooperation between species. The galaxy had just murdered one of humanity's finest representatives in cold blood, and they had broadcast it like entertainment. Within minutes, Park was standing in the war room deep beneath Luna's surface. The facility had been built in secret over the past decade, hidden from alien observation satellites. Dozens of officers sat at control stations, their faces grim as they watched the execution replay on their screens. The aliens were actually celebrating, treating Hana's death like a victory parade. "Sir," called out Captain Kim Dae-ho from his communication station, "we're receiving confirmation signals from all sectors. Every defense network is online and ready." Park nodded slowly. For years, ever since first contact with the Galactic Federation, humanity had maintained two faces. The public face showed Earth as a peaceful, hopeful civilization eager to join the galactic community. But behind the scenes, military strategists had been preparing for exactly this scenario. They had never trusted the aliens' friendly smiles and diplomatic promises. Every human colony, every space station, every mining operation in the outer system had been secretly equipped with hidden weapons and defensive systems. While alien observers watched humanity's peaceful exploration ships, they never noticed the military supply runs disguised as commercial cargo flights. They never detected the weapons factories built inside asteroids or the battle fleets assembled in the dark spaces between planets. "Activate Protocol 7, Park ordered quietly. His communications officer's hands moved across the control panel with practiced precision. Across human space, sleeping systems came to life. Hidden weapon platforms powered up. Cloaked ships dropped their stealth fields. Battle stations that had been disguised as research facilities revealed their true nature. Earth itself, massive defense platforms rose from underground silos. The moon's surface opened to reveal launch bays filled with warships. Mars Command activated its orbital defense grid. The asteroid belt mining stations turned out to be heavily armed fortresses. Humanity had been preparing for war while pretending to seek peace. Park walked to the main communication console and activated the galaxy-wide broadcast system. His message would reach every inhabited world, every alien government, every species that had cheered for Hana's death. When he spoke, his voice was calm and measured, but it carried the weight of humanity's fury. "People of the galaxy," he began, "you have executed Ambassador Lee Hana, a woman who came to you in peace seeking friendship and cooperation. You murdered her not for any crime she committed, but because you feared what humanity might become. You have shown us who you truly are." He paused, letting his words sink in across the vast distances of space. "Ambassador Lee Hana is avenged. You wanted to see human warfare. You will have your wish. This is Admiral Park Jin-woo of the Human Defense Force. We are coming." The first sign of trouble came at the Thexian homeworld when their orbital sensors detected something impossible. 12 massive ships had appeared out of nowhere, sitting in space just beyond their outermost moon. The vessels were sleek and deadly, nothing like the clumsy exploration ships the aliens had seen humans use before. These were built for war. Captain Lee Sung-min stood on the bridge of the flagship Vengeance, watching the alien world spin slowly below them. His ship was one of humanity's greatest secrets, built in the hidden shipyards of the outer asteroid belt. While the galaxy thought humans were still struggling with basic space travel, Earth's engineers had been reverse engineering every piece of alien technology they could get their hands on. The human ships used Zephyrian shield technology, but improved with human modifications that made them 3 times stronger. Their weapons were based on Krillian plasma cannons, but redesigned to fire faster and hit harder. The engines came from studying captured Vorthan drive systems, then rebuilt to be more efficient and nearly impossible to detect. "Sir," called out his tactical officer, "we have target locks on all military installations. Their defense fleet is moving to intercept, but they're still 2 hours away." Sungmin nodded. The aliens had made a fatal mistake by underestimating human intelligence gathering. For years, human diplomats and traders had been secretly mapping every Federation world they visited. They knew exactly where each planet kept its weapons, its government buildings, and its military command centers. At the same moment, 11 other human fleets were taking positions around 11 other Federation worlds: the Velrathi homeworld, the Galactic Council Station, the Krillian military headquarters, and 8 other key targets. Each fleet had arrived simultaneously, using coordinated jump calculations that the aliens didn't think humans were capable of making. "Begin the attack," Sungmin ordered quietly. The human ships opened fire with surgical precision, their weapons carved through alien shields like they were made of paper. Military satellites exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Orbital defense platforms crumbled under the concentrated firepower. Government buildings on the planet's surface were reduced to rubble by precisely aimed energy beams. But the civilian areas remained completely untouched. Human targeting systems were so accurate that they could destroy a military base while leaving the hospital next door without a scratch. This wasn't random destruction or mindless revenge. This was controlled, calculated warfare designed to send a specific message. On the Galactic Council Station, Admiral Vextar watched in horror as human ships systematically dismantled their defensive capabilities. The same species he had called primitive barbarians were demonstrating military technology that surpassed anything the Federation possessed. Their weapons were more powerful, their shields were stronger, and their tactics were flawlessly executed. "How is this possible?" he demanded of his intelligence officers. "Our report said humans barely understood basic space travel." The truth was becoming clear to alien commanders across the galaxy. Humanity had been playing a long game, pretending to be weak while secretly building the most advanced military force the galaxy had ever seen. Every peaceful diplomatic mission had been a reconnaissance operation. Every cultural exchange had been an intelligence-gathering exercise. Within 6 hours, 12 Federation worlds had been stripped of their military capabilities. Not a single civilian had been harmed, but the message was unmistakable. Humanity could strike anywhere, any time, with devastating precision. The Krillian battle fleet arrived at their homeworld expecting to find primitive human ships that they could easily destroy. Admiral Zekathul had fought in dozens of space battles and commanded the most feared warships in the galaxy. His vessels were massive, heavily armored, and packed with weapons that could crack planets in half. Against 12 human ships, this should have been a quick victory. Instead, he found himself staring at a tactical disaster unfolding on his screens. Captain Kim Minho watched the approaching alien fleet from his command chair aboard the human destroyer, Swift Strike. His ship was half the size of the smallest Krillian vessel, but he wasn't worried. Human engineers had learned something important about space combat that the aliens had missed. Bigger wasn't always better. "Enemy fleet closing to engagement range," reported his tactical officer. 48 ships total, all heavy cruisers and battleships. "Perfect," Minho replied with a slight smile. "Begin evasive pattern Delta 7. All ships execute Thunder Run formation." The human ships suddenly scattered in all directions, moving faster than the aliens thought possible. The Krillian fleet had expected humans to form a defensive line and fight like traditional space navies. Instead, the human vessels danced through space like fighter jets, using their superior speed and maneuverability to avoid the aliens' massive guns. Admiral Zekathul watched in growing frustration as his Heavy weapons repeatedly missed their targets. The human ships were too fast, too unpredictable. They would appear on his starboard side, fire a devastating volley, then vanish before his gunners could return fire. Seconds later, they would attack from a completely different angle. Their ships are impossible, his weapons officer reported. They're moving at speeds that should tear their hulls apart, but their structural integrity remains perfect. What the aliens didn't know was that human ships were built using a revolutionary design philosophy. Instead of making them bigger and stronger, human engineers had focused on making them smarter and faster. Every system was computer-controlled, with artificial intelligence that could make thousands of calculations per second. The ships could change direction, speed, and attack patterns faster than organic minds could follow. Captain Minho's tactical display showed the alien formation, breaking apart as confusion spread through their ranks. "Now," he ordered, "execute hammer strike." The 12 human ships suddenly converged on the largest Krillian battleship from 6 different directions simultaneously. Their combined firepower overwhelmed the alien vessel's shields in seconds, and precise strikes disabled its engines and weapons without destroying the crew quarters. The mighty battleship was left floating helplessly in space, completely neutralized. The remaining Krillian ships tried to retreat, but the human vessels were faster. One by one, they were systematically disabled, using tactics the aliens had never seen before. The humans fought like a school of fish, moving as one coordinated organism while maintaining individual initiative. Within 2 hours, the entire Krillian battle fleet was drifting powerless in space. Not a single alien had been killed, but their military pride was shattered. Admiral Zekthul found himself sending a message he never thought he would transmit, a request for mercy from a species he had considered inferior. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy as human fleets demonstrated their technological superiority. The aliens realized too late that they had been deceived for years. Every time they had shared technology with humans, thinking they were helping primitive allies, the humans had taken that knowledge and improved upon it dramatically. Part 7. The Hunt Commander Choi Sujin stood in the dimly lit war room, her eyes scanning the holographic display that showed dozens of star systems. Each red dot represented a target, a council member who had voted for Hana's execution. The room was silent except for the soft hum of computers processing data that had taken years to collect. "Begin Operation Silent Justice," she commanded, her voice steady, but carrying the weight of humanity's anger. What happened next shocked the entire galaxy. Human Special Forces units, who had been dismissed as primitive soldiers by most alien species, suddenly appeared across dozens of worlds. Simultaneously, they moved like ghosts through the most secure facilities, bypassing defense systems that were supposed to be impenetrable. On the crystalline world of Zephyria, Council member Vexitar was hosting a celebration in his floating palace. He believed himself untouchable, surrounded by the most advanced security money could buy. But human operatives had studied his daily routines for 3 years. They knew exactly when he would step onto his private balcony to admire the twin moons. The operation took less than 5 minutes. Vextar simply vanished, leaving behind only a small device that projected a hologram, Hana's final message playing on repeat. Across the galaxy, similar scenes unfolded. On the desert world of Keth Prime, another council member found himself face to face with humans who had somehow infiltrated his underground bunker. They had turned his own security droids against him, reprogramming them with techniques no one knew humans possessed. The most shocking revelation came when the galaxy realized the scope of human intelligence gathering. Every diplomatic meeting, every cultural exchange, every trade negotiation, humans had been watching, learning, and preparing. Ambassador Chen's gentle questions about family traditions weren't just friendly conversation. They were mapping out personal schedules and security protocols. Dr. Nakamura's scientific conferences weren't just about sharing knowledge. While alien scientists focused on the presentations, human agents were studying architectural layouts and identifying escape routes. Even the human students studying in alien universities were gathering information about local customs and power structures. The Council had made a fatal mistake. They thought humans were simple creatures who wore their emotions on their sleeves. They never suspected that behind every smile and handshake was a species that had learned to survive by thinking 10 steps ahead. Within 72 hours, 18 council members had disappeared. Not killed. That would have been too simple. They were taken alive, each one finding themselves in holding cells where they could do nothing but watch recordings of Hana's life and death over and over again. The remaining council members, those who had voted against Hana's execution, received a different message. A simple video call from Commander Sujin herself. "We know who our friends are," she said calmly, "and we never forget our debts, good or bad." The galaxy watched in stunned silence as the most powerful beings in known space simply vanished one by one. Advanced civilizations that had ruled for millennia suddenly realized they knew nothing about the species they had so casually dismissed. Fear spread through the council chambers. Security was tripled, then quadrupled, but it didn't matter. Humans had spent years learning every detail about their targets. They knew which guards could be bribed, which systems could be hacked, and which allies could be turned. The hunt continued, with methodical precision, sending a clear message across the stars. Humanity would not be underestimated again. Part 8. Galactic Collapse. The great assembly hall that had once echoed with confident alien voices now felt like a tomb. Representatives from hundreds of worlds sat in stunned silence, watching their carefully built federation crumble before their eyes. The disappearance of council members had triggered something none of them had expected: complete galactic panic. "This is madness," roared Ambassador Theclon from Rigel 7, his forearms gesticulating wildly. "We cannot let these primitives terrorize the entire galaxy." But his words rang hollow. Even as he spoke, his own security detail was quietly evacuating his family to a hidden bunker on the far side of his home system. The Centauri delegation, once proud allies of the Council, were the first to break ranks. Their leader, Premier Coruscant, stood up with trembling hands. "The Centauri Republic formally withdraws from this federation," he announced. "We refuse to face humanity's wrath for crimes we did not commit." His words were like a crack in a dam. Within hours, 12 more species announced their withdrawal. The Andromedan Trade Union sent a message that stunned everyone. They were offering full economic cooperation to humanity in exchange for protection from the remaining Council forces. Colonel Yang Hyuk watched all of this unfold from his command center on Lunar Base. His wall of monitors showed real-time intelligence feeds from across the galaxy. What impressed his staff most wasn't the advanced technology, it was how Yang seemed to predict every move before it happened. "Sir, the Vegan Collective is mobilizing their fleet," reported Lieutenant Kim. "They're heading toward the Tau Ceti system." Yang didn't even look up from his reports. "They'll change course in 6 hours and request a ceasefire instead. Their economy depends on human trade routes they thought we didn't know about." The lieutenant stared at his commander in amazement. 6 hours later, the Vegan fleet stopped dead in space and sent a diplomatic transmission requesting peace talks. This pattern repeated across dozens of worlds. Every alliance the remaining Council tried to form somehow fell apart before it could take shape. Every military strategy they planned was countered before they could execute it. It was as if humans were reading their minds. The truth was far more terrifying. For decades, while aliens had dismissed humans as emotional and unpredictable, human intelligence networks had quietly mapped every trade route, every political alliance, every economic dependency in the galaxy. They knew which worlds needed food imports, which species relied on specific technologies, and which governments were secretly unpopular with their own people. On Proxima Station, a major shipping hub, alien traders watched in disbelief as human vessels began blockading key supply routes. But these weren't random attacks. They were surgical strikes that targeted only the worlds still supporting the Council. Species that had declared neutrality found their supply lines completely untouched. The psychological impact was devastating. The Rigelian Empire, which had boasted about their superior intellect for centuries, found themselves completely outmaneuvered by a species they had considered barely civilized. Their greatest military minds couldn't understand how humans always seemed to be one step ahead. Fear spread faster than any plague. Ancient alliances that had lasted millennia dissolved overnight. Species that had never even heard of Earth suddenly found themselves studying human culture, desperately trying to understand how they had been so wrong about this seemingly simple species. The galaxy was learning a painful lesson. Underestimating humanity's capacity for long-term planning was the last mistake many civilizations would ever make. Part 9. New Order. The massive human fleet hung in space like a steel curtain around Council Station. Hundreds of ships, from sleek destroyers to the enormous flagship Terra's Resolve, cast shadows across the station that had once been the untouchable center of galactic power. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Park stood before the main view screen, his uniform crisp and his expression calm. Today would reshape the galaxy. "Open all channels," he commanded. "Every world, every station, every ship. I want everyone to hear this." The communication officer nodded, her fingers dancing across the controls. Within moments, the Admiral's image was being broadcast to billions of beings across thousands of worlds. In alien homes, government buildings, and military command centers, screens flickered to life, showing the face of the human who had brought the mighty council to its knees. "People of the galaxy," Admiral Park began, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "For too long, you have lived under a system that believes some lives matter more than others, a system that could murder an innocent child and call it justice. On distant worlds, alien families gathered around their screens. The Centauri, the Andromedans, even the proud Rigelians, all watching this human who spoke with the confidence of someone who held their fate in his hands. The old council is finished," Park continued. "Their authority ends today. But we are not here to rule you through fear. We are here to build something better." Behind him, through the bridge windows, Council Station loomed, its golden towers, no longer symbols of untouchable power, but reminders of a fallen empire. The surviving council members were inside, waiting to hear their fate. They had learned too late that humanity didn't make idle threats. "Our terms are simple," the Admiral said, his tone never wavering. "Full reparations will be paid for the murder of Hannah Kim. Every world that supported her execution will contribute to a memorial fund for victims of council injustice. Second, human sovereignty will be recognized across all galactic territories. No longer will any authority claim jurisdiction over human lives." In the Andromedan capital, Premier Veltar watched with growing amazement. The humans weren't demanding tribute or conquest. They were restructuring the entire galactic government. It was brilliant and terrifying at the same time. "Third," Admiral Park continued, "a new galactic assembly will be formed. Every species will have equal representation, regardless of their technology or military strength. Decisions will be made by consensus, not by the whims of the powerful." The true shock came with his next words. "This new government will operate under human oversight for the next 50 years. We will ensure that no species ever again faces the Council's brand of justice. You called us primitive, but we understand something you forgot. True strength isn't about having the biggest weapons. It's about knowing when to use them, and more importantly, when not to." Across the galaxy, the reaction was immediate. Some worlds celebrated, finally free from council oppression. Others trembled, realizing they now answered to the species they had mocked. The Vegan Collective sent immediate messages of support. The Rigelian Empire quietly began preparing their formal surrender. "The human age has begun," Admiral Park concluded. "Not through conquest, but through justice. We will build a galaxy where no child, human or alien, dies for the convenience of politicians." As the transmission ended, the galaxy held its breath. The old order was truly dead, and in its place rose something unprecedented, a civilization led not by the strongest or most advanced, but by those who remembered what it meant to be human.